Over the last 7 days, several cases have been reported of police conducting raids and search operations against activists and journalists in Russia. Some have even been detained. The most notable among those arrested is a former reporter for a local newspaper. The former reporter has been charged with treason. As per reports, this is the first case of a journalist being pressed with treason charges in almost 2 decades in Russia. In another case, Russian investigators have opened a criminal case against one of the anti-Kremlin activists named Pyotr Zurylov. The charge against Verzilov is that he failed to declare his dual citizenship. Investigators say that they found a Canadian passport in Verzilov's possession while conducting a search linked to his participation in unauthorized protests last year. These new charges against Verzilov come just days after his release from prison. Verzilov was previously put in jail after being found guilty of petty hooliganism and swearing in public. The message from the political leadership in Russia seems to be clear. There is no place for opposition and dissent. The now emboldened Vladimir Putin has set the record straight. In Russia, he is the one true leader, and all opponents are at his mercy. WION correspondent Lucy Taylor is joining us live from Moscow. Now, Lucy, the win in the nationwide vote follows the amendments being approved by the country's parliament and the Constitutional Court. It's safe to say that not many can question the validity of these changes. But what was the reason then for these raids on these activists?
Well, we don't know yet the reason, but the activists themselves say that they believe this has happened after they submitted an application for permission to hold a rally next week against the results of that referendum. They're all part of the Niet campaign, the campaign against the constitutional changes which were voted on last week. They were planning to hold a rally next week because they say that this result wasn't fair, and they say that this vote may have been rigged. Independent monitors say that they found irregularities in the vote and that they cannot call it legitimate. But we've heard this morning at least 5 organisers have had their homes searched, starting at 6 a.m, so dawn raids by Russia's investigative committee. The offices of a media house connected to them have also just been raided. That has been announced in the last hour or so. And we're told that another home of another lawyer connected to this group in Tomsk, so across Russia and Siberia, has also been raided this morning as well. So a wave of searches this morning. We haven't had a response from the authorities about why that has happened or what it is that they're looking for. But these people are all people who are connected to a civil rights group called Open Russia, which is connected to, or has been running the Niet campaign. And as you say, it's just 1 week since Vladimir Putin won that referendum. It was a sweeping referendum on constitutional changes. There were lots of constitutional changes, not just the ones related to Vladimir Putin himself, but the most significant, of course, for many people will be the one that allows him to stand again for re-election after the end of his current term. It could mean he stays in power until 2036. And he and the Kremlin have very much seen that as a victory. They saw it as testament to public trust in Vladimir Putin. And as a sign of democracy, because they say they put this decision to the people to vote on themselves. They say that strengthens democracy. But these activists and opposition campaigners who've been affected this morning say that the state is now trying to send a more subtle message about opposition politicians and activists here in Russia.
Right, but that's not the only case, isn't it? A former reporter has been charged with treason. That's almost 2 decades after in Russia that a reporter has been charged with treason. There is a criminal case against one of anti-Kremlin activists as well, Verzilov as well. Any statements from their side?
Yes, this is a separate case, but it's happened just 2 days ago. Ivan Safronov is an ex-newspaper reporter for a national newspaper, Kommersant, and he was arrested outside his Moscow apartment building. The security services themselves released video of his arrest, and he has been detained in pre-trial detention for at least 2 months on suspicion of treason. His lawyer says it's the first time a journalist has been accused of treason for almost 2 decades. It's not completely clear what the charges are so far. I mean, what the offence is that he's being accused of, but it seems to be that he's accused of passing state secrets, military secrets. He is a reporter who specialises in space and military issues, and he actually left journalism 2 months ago and began a job as an aide to the head of the Russian space agency. His supporters, his friends and former colleagues say that it's ludicrous, absurd, that he's been accused of treason. They called him a true patriot, and a number of people have come out to protest in his defence, but a number of those have also then in turn been arrested for staging those protests here in Moscow. So a difficult case, an interesting case. If he is convicted, he could face up to 2 decades in jail. That's the penalty for treason. But there's a long way to go in that trial. We won't hear again from the courts until September, and even then that trial is likely to be held behind closed doors because of the sensitive nature of what he's accused of.
Lucy, one final question before I let you go. You mentioned it was a sweeping win in the referendum for Vladimir Putin and the constitutional changes. Any steps been taken yet to formally extend Putin's rule till 2036?
No, the constitutional changes have formally come into force, but it doesn't automatically extend Vladimir Putin's reign. That's a very sensitive issue here in Russia. But what it does do is allow him to stand again for elections. So whereas under the previous constitution, this was due to be his final term in office, and after 2024, somebody else would be eligible to step up and take his position. That had caused a lot of wrangling publicly and behind the scenes, apparently, in terms of succession, who the successor would be. You might remember in January, the entire Russian government resigned in order to facilitate constitutional changes. So lots of complications related to Vladimir Putin stepping down. But for a while, people really thought that that might be the case because it was under the previous constitution. However, this new constitution, which was voted on last week, 78% of Russians voters approved these changes. This now means that he is eligible to stand again for 2 more terms in office, which, if he is successful in those elections, as he may well be, that would give him the chance to rule until 2036. By then, he'll be in his mid-80s. So many people here critical of that, saying that it's Vladimir Putin's quest to become a ruler for life here in Russia.
Absolutely. Putin might become Russia's ruler for life, isn't it? Lucy Taylor, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.